Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Reloaded. The moment the glittering lights of the Plaza Hotel's opulent hall twinkled above me as I sat at my designated spot, strategically shoved near the service door, away from where my family commanded attention at my father's 75th birthday gala, I knew they'd never stop belittling me. My simple black gown from a chain store drew quiet snickers from my siblings clad in couture. Still tooling around in that beat-up Toyota, my sister Emily quipped, her pearl necklace glinting as she waved dismissively. I figured that teller gig at the credit union would have come through by now. If she only knew I owned not just the credit union, but the conglomerate overseeing 42 local lenders across 4 continents, all concealed behind tiers of dummy firms and confidential funds. The gig's on pause, I answered softly, glancing at my phone as a notification popped up. Midwest lending buyout set for sign-off. Sellers oblivious to purchaser's name. The sellers being my brother Daniel's floundering lending firm, the one he directed with handouts from our father and endless crowing about his entrepreneurial flair. Ava's always been sensible, my stepmom Vivian declared, her Gucci ensemble likely costing more than they assumed I earned annually. Not all are cut for the boardroom. I forced a grin, recalling the board session I'd led that morning, not in some office tower, but in my secluded penthouse overlooking the Hudson, the same tower where Vivian had been denied a penthouse lease last quarter, flagged as credit unworthy by the committee I quietly ran. On the topic of sensible, Daniel grinned, twirling his premium bourbon. How's that saving scheme faring? Still socking away $50 a week into my IRA. My true portfolio could swallow his whole lending firm's yearly profits 1,000-fold. The buyout alert vibrated once more. Funds transfer primed. Pending your go-ahead. I'm coping, I said gently, donning the same discreet facade I'd upheld for 12 years while forging my covert realm. The credit union's 401k contribution aids. Oh, dear, Emily chuckled, exchanging a smug glance with her venture capitalist spouse. You really ought to let us manage your finances. Robert could slot you into some entry-level index funds, something secure for someone at your tier. Robert bobbed his head patronizingly, clueless that my venture capital arm held majority stake in his venture firm's parent entity. Another notification blinked. Dubai Sovereign. Funds seeking boosted allocation. Your assets surpass their floor by 400%. Ava just needs to embrace her bounds, Vivian chimed, tapping my arm with phony pity. We can't all be money maestros like Daniel and Emily. I pondered the money realm I'd constructed while they pictured me crunching numbers in a cubicle. The worldwide web of lenders, capital groups, and property empires, all running under various banners, all linking back to my private conglomerate, Shadow Capital Alliance. Did you at least get the Toyota's brakes tuned? Daniel inquired, eliciting chuckles from his yacht club pals. Last time, you seemed like you were sweltering in that rayon top. The Toyota was actually a meticulously kept decoy, much like my humble flat and practical attire. My actual fleet, stored in a secure hangar in Geneva, featured rides they'd only glimpsed in glossies. Still budgeting for maintenance, I responded, noting another alert on my phone. Gulf Investment Group bidding 45% markup for Midwest lending stocks. Advise sticking with initial buyout strategy. I'm telling you, Emily pressed, Robert could arrange a financing plan for a fresh ride. Something used but certified, within your budget. My phone hummed again. My elite finance squad verifying the shift of $3 billion to seal today's takeovers, including the grab of my brother's firm, though he'd learned that at tomorrow's disclosure. Recall when Ava aimed for venture capital? Vivian reminisced with a staged exhale. Thank heavens the hiring team saw sense. Some folks just aren't geared for big money. The same hiring team that now answered to a branch I oversaw. Just like the lender that turned down my loan request 4 years back, now held by one of my affiliates. Through the throng, I spotted my father fielding kudos from Chicago's money moguls. He hadn't even noted my entry. Too engrossed in Daniel and Emily's alleged triumphs. If he only knew his sensible daughter could acquire and dispose of every soul in this hall. My phone glowed with another note. Ma'am, ultimate sign-off required for Midwest lending buyout. Stock shift will activate regulatory disclosure mandates, unveiling new control setup. I grinned, observing Daniel brag about his firm's newest growth schemes. Schemes that would never come to fruition once I assumed command tomorrow. Sometimes payback isn't grand theatrics. Sometimes it's stealthily acquiring all they cherish while they're too occupied scorning your Toyota. Extra bubbly for the property crew, Emily. Ordered a passing attendant. Ava, go for soda. We wouldn't want you splurging on booze. If she only knew I owned the bubbly maker and the venue and the lender on her mortgage. The initial wave of shift swept the hall at precisely 8 p.m. when smartphones started pinging with urgent news flashes. Daniel's cheeks paled as he scanned the alert. Breaking, Midwest lending snapped up by Shadow Capital Alliance in $5.1 billion packed. What the devil? Daniel muttered, almost spilling his bourbon. This must be an error. My firm isn't on the block. Actually, I said, finally activating my actual work device, a fortified gadget that steered my worldwide money web. The deal sealed 4 minutes ago. Your directors greenlit it unanimously last week. The hush that blanketed our corner of the hall was total. Emily's bubbly flute halted midway to her lips as the ramifications sank in. Shadow Capital? Robert, her venture capitalist spouse, murmured, but they're one of the mightiest covert capital outfits globally. They command half the lenders in Europe along with major stakes in Asian property, African resources ops, and Latin American farming ventures. I affirm, as my chief aide Marcus emerged with a suede dossier. Care to review the full buyout papers? Vivian's fingers gripped her emeralds. But you toil in credit review. That was a ruse, Marcus clarified expertly. Miss Whitaker has been crafting her money realm for 12 years. The credit reviewer role was merely a handy disguise. The hall's displays, meant for birthday slides, now flashed finance news streams declaring the buyout. Daniel slumped heavily in his seat as journalists began ringing his phone. The director's ballot, he said faintly. The covert huddles last month were with my buyout squad, I nodded, though they didn't realize who they were truly conferring with. Shadow Capital functions via strata of affiliates. Very few grasp who truly owns it all. Emily's impeccable stance crumpled as she madly searched Shadow Capital Alliance, 42 lenders, property empires in 70 nations, venture capital pools valued over $400 billion at latest tally. I provide, though that figure shifts by the minute. We just sealed a resources op in Latin America. The paperwork should hit the wires any second. Marcus handed out in-depth dossiers to the dazed assembly, full records of Shadow Capital's assets, its immense web of entities, and its extraordinary span across worldwide markets. The Toyota, Vivian said weakly. Your thrift clothes, all part of the ruse, I affirmed. It's astonishing what you uncover about possible takeovers when folks think you're just another scraping employee. They spill their firm's flaws, their money weak spots. My phone hummed non-stop now. Calls from trade networks, interview pleas from money mags, urgent notes from worldwide capital allies. The same folks who'd breezed by my budget spot minutes ago were now frantically vying for my notice. The flat in Brooklyn, Emily said slowly, when you couldn't swing Manhattan, is actually part of a property holding outfit I run, I replied. Along with that tower you tried to lease into last year, the one that nixed your bid. I chair the committee incognito, of course. The displays showed more urgent news. Shadow Capital's newest takeovers, its market-shifting ventures, its stealthy buildup of influence across varied sectors. The capital advice you spurned last holiday, Robert said faintly. When I offered to aid with your pension setup, was entertaining, I grinned. Considering Shadow Capital owns 35% of your venture firm's parent entity. Those entry index funds you proposed, we run them too. The following hour reshaped not just my father's birthday fest, but the whole pecking order of Chicago's money moguls. Bloomberg ran an urgent feed. Enigma tycoon unveiled. Shadow Capital's covert boss surfaces. Ms. Whitaker, a Financial Times reporter who'd slipped through guards approached. Sources say you're also behind the recent buy of Asian central bank bonds. Comment? All national debt buys are private, I replied, watching Daniel's face pale further. The same brother who'd scoffed at my money smarts was just grasping I held substantial chunks of worldwide fiscal policy. The Capital Group, Emily murmured, scrolling through Shadow Capital's assets on her phone. When you sought to join last year, was market scouting, I affirmed. Every time you turned me down for being too basic, I was spotting fresh billion-dollar marks. Those simple queries I posed, each one sparked another mega deal. Marcus sneered with more papers, the full structural map of my money realm. Lenders, capital groups, property giants, all veiled behind dummy firms and private funds. Your loan bid, Vivian said faintly. The one that got denied, was at a lender I already held, I nodded. Sometimes the finest way to keep a disguise is to endure what ordinary folks do. While you were mocking my bad credit, I was sealing the buy of the lender's parent. My phone glowed with another note. The European Central Bank chair wanted an urgent huddle. The finance minister was on hold. The World Bank head needed to chat global economic steadiness. The money advisor I suggested, Robert said slowly. Last month when you said you needed aid with budgeting, works for one of my affiliates. I replied his whole outfit was snapped up by Shadow Capital last year. Those budgeting charts he offered were crafted by my squad to spot potential venture chances. The displays now showed the true breadth of Shadow Capital's sway. Controlling shares in key lenders, leading spots in property sectors, strategic assets in everything from tech to farming. Your school loans, Daniel recalled suddenly, when you said you were still repaying them, were purchased and waived years back, I affirmed, along with about $12 billion in other school debt. One of my more gratifying buys. My exec squad kept handing out papers, in-depth reports of Shadow Capital's market-shifting deals, its strategic takeovers, its quiet buildup of fiscal might. Tomorrow, I declared to the dazed room, Shadow Capital unveils its boldest venture yet. We're launching a $60 billion pool focused on snapping up troubled financial outfits, starting with the ones that turn down poor folks like me. Marcus handed out the last batch of papers. My full blueprint for reshaping worldwide finance from a gatekeeping tool into an opportunity engine. By the way, I added, collecting my items, that yacht club membership you're so fond of. Shadow Capital acquired the whole chain last month. I'm pondering turning them into public docs. Because sometimes the finest payback isn't flashing riches. It's using it to reshape the very setup that once shut you out. Your loan bids, I said to Emily and Daniel as their phones buzzed with credit alerts. Might need tweaking. Shadow Capital just tweaked its lending rules. We're extra strict with borrowers who scoff at folks' Toyotas. The next day's headlines would dub it the biggest unmasking in finance annals. But it was more than that. It was proof that real might doesn't stem from couture tags or social rank. It stems from grasping money while others just idolize it. James, I called as we prepped to exit. Please make sure all get our new inclusion policy, especially the bit about judging folks by their ride choices. Because the finest triumph tale isn't about entering the money moguls. It's about stealthily becoming their overlord while they're too occupied tallying their couture tags to spot it. Oh, and Vivian, I turned back one last time. That Gucci ensemble you're in, the whole fashion line is now held by a Shadow Capital affiliate. I'm thinking of turning it into a budget brand. My phone hummed again. Sovereign funds desperately seeking venture chances. Central lenders requesting policy chats. Worldwide financial outfits suddenly grasping who really steered their fate. The supper bookings you couldn't swing, Daniel said numbly. Last month at Le Cirque, I own the eatery, I shrugged. And the tower and the avenue. Astonishing what you can acquire while folks think you're pinching pennies. As I strode out of the hall, I heard Emily's frantic tone. Ring our trader. Ring our lender. Ring anyone. But what she didn't know was that they all answered to me. Now, every money guru, every lender, every trader they might dash to is ultimately tied to Shadow Capital's vast web. Should we unveil the other takeovers? Marcus asked as we boarded my waiting ride. Not the Toyota, but a bespoke Bentley crafted for secure talks. Not yet, I grinned, watching the frenzy spread. Through the hall's panes. Let them ponder what else the poor sister holds. After all, I still have a few hundred dummy firms they haven't uncovered. Because true riches isn't about flaunting. It's about quietly holding everything while they mock your Toyota's faulty AC. And I held it all, right down to the air they breathed in their soon-to-be seized estates. 1 month on, I sat in my true bureau, a penthouse overlooking Chicago, reviewing the fallout. Daniel's lending firm had been fully revamped. Emily's spouse's venture fund was under fresh oversight, and Vivian's social set was still reeling from learning who really owned their yacht clubs. Ma'am, Marcus entered with a fresh brief. Your kin has made 62 bids to book meetings with you via various paths. How many of those paths do we hold? I asked, already knowing. All of them, he grinned. And their money gurus are advising they comply with Shadow Capital's new rules, especially the ones about respectful handling of less fortunate kin. My father had tried connecting through every money link he had, unaware that each route circled back to me. His 75th birthday had become known in lending circles as the Shadow Unmasking. The day the money world learned that the real might wasn't in the VIP zone, but in the quiet spot near the service door. Should we greenlight any of their meeting bids? Marcus asked. Thanks so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next story.